samsaradava nalaliraloka tranaya karuna guna gunatvam praptasya kalyana guna navasya vande guru shri charanaravinda Mahaprabhu kirtana nichagita vaditra madhyan manasorasena Romancha kampa shutaranga vajo vande guru shri charanaravinda Shri Vigraharadhana Nityananam Shringarathan Mandiramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyanjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Chaturvida Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadana Triptan Harivaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhava Yurapara Madhurya Leela Ganarupanam Nam Pratikshanasvadana lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Nikunjayo no ratikele sedhai Ya yali bir yukti rapekshaniyai Tatrati daksha ativalavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Sakshadaritvina samastashatse uktastatha bhayata eva sadvi. Kinto pravorya priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati katopi. Jayam stuvam stastaya satri sadyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Neelamarva, Radha Neelamarva, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra Ma, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाया नरसिंहाया नमस्ते नरसिंहाया प्रह्लादलाददायिने प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्याकाशीपूर्वक्षः शीलटं कानखालाये इतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो तो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो बहे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नाखा अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलवरे नाका अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव ओ नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रह्लाद महाराज भक्त प्रह्लाद महाराज भक्त प्रह्लाद महाराज भक्त प्रह्लाद जय भक्त प्रह्लाद जय भक्त प्रह्लाद जय भक्त प्रह्लाद जय भक्त प्रह्लाद नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव। विघ्न विनाशक लक्ष्मी नरसिंह स्वामी भगवान की जय। भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी जे तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरन हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी ए निवेदन धारो साखीरनु गाता कोरो सेवाधिकार दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे कोए ये न मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
My desires are trust. I always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg of you, as be a follower of the Kavali of the Bride, please give me the privilege of devotional service, making you a maidservant. Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahudani Jasara Shaktis Tadrapika Niyatamasmarnena Kala Etadasi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mapi Tudaitamir Samarani Nanaraha Trinadapi Sunichena Parorapi Sugishana Anyamadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Naradam Narajam Sundarim Kavita Rajagadishakami Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhagavata Bhaktirati Koi Ainanda Tuntaki Karam Patipam Mam Vishubheva Bambudo Kripaya Tava Pada Pankacha Kidadu Shubhendra Nayanam Galadakshudaya Varanam Galagarudagira Vilayakatim Samabhukara Tavanama Brahmahe Vivishati Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pavasayatam Sunjayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vahemi Alishava Padaratam Padashunam Adarshanam Namam Gatam Guru Vaditavaditavadam Tato Matprananastu Sevara Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions of living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all of your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for changing these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord thinking oneself lower than the strong and street. One should be more tolerant than a tree. Devoid of all sense of false prestige, should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaja Nanda Krishna, I'm your eternal servant, yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering the moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, and makes me broken-hearted when not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional. Blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures, for literatures are pursuant to the Vedic origins. To to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination, to give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord, to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities of karmakanda, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees who will fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vansha kalpa prubhischa kripa sindhuva eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava authority. Om Ajnana Tirmandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshurumritam Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sargajatam Sargana Raguna Tam Tam Chidevam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sargana Lalita Shri Visuddham Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharya Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacharya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namane Shri Bhakti Devi Dayakta Kripapaya Krishna Sambandya Nana Vayane Bhagave Namaha Adhu Rupa Purnamaya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktita Shri Gaurakaruna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatari Rupa Nuga Vida Bhaktita Nama Gaur Kishoraya Sakshat Vigrahaya Murtaye Shri Rupa Nuga Bhakti Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidanandanamine Gaur Shakti Surupaya Rupa Nuga Vrayate Varvakavaklasvam Nirdasta Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Pancha Kalpa Prubhischa Kripa Sindhuva Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guruvase Namaha Panchatattvam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktartharam Bhaktaram Namne Bhaktasaktakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jaitam Surator Pangor Mama Mandir Matermati Radha Manamano Mano Divya Dunda Kalpadamada Shrimad Radhagara Samasanastato Shrimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prastavi Prayam Swami Viram Rasa Raswami Vivam Sivata Katastata Karsan Vanir Shanir Gopir Gopinath Prasai Suna Aptakanchan Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Yashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Maharaj Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Shri Guru Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakala Karanam Chintamani Prakasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesa Surabhir Avipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kvananta Ravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeri Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vritti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adhyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Sampragamyo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatum Jagadanta Kotim Yas Chaktirasti Jagadanta Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupas Mahimasanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Vista Birya Eva Nijarupa Dayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistana Navatar Makarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramampamamyo Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavavato Jagananda Koti Yas Chakti Rasti Koti Swase Swasatadi Vibhuti Benam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanta Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Visayaveda Vitayamanam Sattva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matayamanasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechatasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vyatasya Yena Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stati Palaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chachesta Tesa Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Siram Yata Divikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambutam Apitata Samapaitikar Yat Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deepartare Vihita Santanam Abhyapetya Deepayate Vivitahetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajade Bhajatismi Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamata Avalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisheso Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Vaswan Yatasma Sakalesu Najesutesha Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Pitadvatatra Brahmaya Isa Jagananda Vidanu Karta Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Pala Vyugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganamabu Murud sascha kalas tatatma manasiti jagatjayani yasmad bhavanti vibhavanti visantiyam cha govindam adi purisham tamaham bhajami yaschaksuresa savita sakalagrahanam raja samasta suramurtira sesateja yasya gaya brahmati sambrita kala chakro govindam adi purisham tamaham bhajami dharmo tapapa nichaya sutayastapam si brahmadi Kittapatagavate Jiva Yadata Matra Vipava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswakarma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kinticha Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Vitti Vatsalya Moha Gargora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrasim Dharmapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Jikana Maito Emamritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitas Asvadyavapicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihisha Vidisha Bibhyasta Sumahan Nimesar Dakyova Rachati Nahiyatra Bisamaya Bhaje Swita Dvipam Tamaham Ihagolakam Itiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Virachara Kati Paye Shri Guru Vastika prayers Kijay. The spiritual masters receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet, as such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to the Lotus Feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in a temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Feet as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet as such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such spiritual master who is the bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance to the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text number 1. Uddhava Uvacha Atate Tat Anusgyata Bhuktva Pritva Chavarunam Taya Vibram Sita Jnana Duruktair Marma Pas Prisu. Pasprisu. Uddhava Uvacha. Uddhava said, Ata, thereafter, Te, they, the Yadavas, Tat, by the Brahmanas, Anugyata, being permitted. Bhuktva, after partaking. Pitva, drinking. Cha, and varunim, liquor. Taya, by that. Vibramsita, jnana, being bereft of knowledge. Duruktai, with harsh words. Marma, the core of the heart. Pasprisu, touched. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, all of them, the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja, being permitted by the Brahmanas, partook of the remnants of prasada, and also drank liquor made of rice. By drinking, they all became delirious, and, bereft of knowledge, they touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In ceremonies, when Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are sumptuously fed, the host partakes of the remnants of foodstuff after the guest has given permission. So, the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja formally took permission from the Brahmanas and ate the prepared foodstuff. Kshatriyas are permitted to drink at certain occasions, so they all drank a kind of light liquor made of rice. By such drinking, they became delirious and bereft of sense, so much so that they forgot their relationship with one another and used harsh words which touched the cores of each other's hearts. Drinking is so harmful that even such a highly cultured family becomes affected by intoxication and can forget themselves in a drunken state. The descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja were not expected to forget themselves in this way, but by the will of the Supreme it happened. And thus they became harsh towards one another. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, all of them, the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja, being permitted by the Brahmanas, partook of the remnants of prasada and also drank liquor made of rice. By drinking, they all became delirious and bereft of knowledge. They touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. Go to Premanandi, Haribol. So this is a there are many instructions in this purport, and it shows the correct way of following the Vedic Dharma, as well as the pitfalls of intoxication. Now, why would Kshatriyas be allowed to drink alcoholic beverages at certain occasions? Well, just like they're also allowed to have more than one wife. Now, did the Pandavas do that themselves? They were Kshatriyas, right? Well, only Bhima, he ate meat because he married Hidimbi, who was a Rakshasi. And that was because he was ordered to do that by his elder brother, Yudhisthira. The other Pandavas never ate meat. And to my knowledge, they did not take any intoxicants or liquor. Although they could if they wanted to as Kshatriyas. So, the idea of the, let's say, permission to do certain things that would be considered not let's say, touchable, is according to their qualities. So sometimes one is not obliged to do those things, but they can do it. So, but that's only for Kshatriyas. It's not for, of course, Brahmanas or the Vaishyas and Sudras. Well, sometimes they may indulge in some illicit activities, but they suffer for that. Okay, so in this case, this was ordained by Krishna. So it's not that they were bad people. They were, it's part of a transcendental pastime, but every time there's a transcendental pastime, there's also instruction. So we see the danger of taking intoxication of any kind, because one can forget their knowledge and begin to act harshly and use bad language and then get into a lot of trouble. So whenever there is anger, there's going to be some kind of destruction. So therefore, it's important to be able to control lust, anger, and greed, which are considered the three doors to hell, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, where it says, here, one second. I think it's the 17th chapter.
So it's 16th.
Oh yes, 16th. Okay.
16:21.
Yeah. 16th chapter.
20.
Yeah. Yeah, Trividam Narakasyedam Dwaram Nasanam Atmana Kamakrodas Tata Lobas Tasmat Etat Trayam Trayajet. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. So now we see the devastating effect of lust, anger, and greed. It all begins with this lusty behavior. And how does one develop this lusty desires and behavior? It's by bad association. So, one thing is said by Lord Chaitanya, he says that Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Achar. One can recognize who is a bona fide Vaishnava because they avoid the association of bad people. Asat Sangha Tyaga. They give up the association of asat people who are not engaged full-time in eternal activities. They're engaged in mundane activities. Asat Sangha Tyaga, they give up the association of asat. A Vaishnava Achar, that's how you can tell who is a Vaishnava and who is not a Vaishnava. So, how do you associate with asat? Well, you can do it in person. You can do it also through movies and television and radio and different social medias and so forth. That's why the social media and all these other digital technologies can be very detrimental. They can also be beneficial because you could also associate with saintly people through those sources. So it all depends on what our choices are in life. So it's very important that we stay connected to hearing and chanting to make sure that we don't develop these perverted tastes of associating with unholy persons. So it says, the beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One tries to satisfy his lust. Well, lust means desires for sense gratification. So rather than trying to satisfy our lust, we should try and satisfy Krishna. That way, we don't develop these lusty desires. If we're always satisfied by pleasing Krishna and through the instructions of bona fide gurus, then we avoid the association of asat, understanding how actually detrimental and dangerous such association is. Now, we do associate with asat people in work, and Sankirtan, and so forth, but the association is on our terms, not their terms. Therefore, we go in Sankirtan to give people prasadam and preach. We're not going to partake of their degraded culture, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So we try and help them understand the value of controlling the mind and the senses through hearing and chanting regularly and praying and engaging in devotional service. So as soon as we deviate from devotional service, we're going to have problems. All kinds of problems. Okay, so therefore it says, God is never merciful to the demoniac people. So, if you look at Hiranyakashipu, he failed to recognize Nrsingadev as Lord Vishnu. And in his next life, he became Ravana. And Ravana had unlimited material opulence. But he failed to recognize Lord Rama as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then he appeared as Sisupala with immense opulence and also, but he was envious of Lord Krishna, and therefore he was constantly thinking of the Lord, but with envy and hatred. So he was always repeating his name. Then he was killed by Sudarshan Chakra and emerged into the body of the Lord. And even though Ravana was a devotee of Lord Shiva, but Shiva could not liberate him. So Ravana was liberated by Lord Krishna in his form as Lord Rama. So we see, not recognizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead because we're blinded by lusty desires for sense gratification is a disease. It's like the worst disease you can have, because it always means we will be a failure in whatever we do, no matter how opulent we may live. Ultimately, it'll all be taken away from us. Okay, so then it says, a man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, one should be very careful of these three enemies of human life, lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoined in Vedic literature. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. There it is. Success is guaranteed for the strict practitioner. That's a statement by Rupa Goswami. In the Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of self-realization. This self-realization is perfected in devotional service. In that devotional service, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life, called the caste system and the spiritual order system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society. If a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt. Well, you see, it's not a defect or a shortcoming by being a Sudra if you follow strictly the rules and regulations of the Varnas and the Ashramas. So anyone can make spiritual advancement if they work cooperatively in the Varnashram system. So that cooperation is absolutely necessary, and it's not that one is less favored than another. Everyone can make tangible spiritual progress, acting by dovetailing their qualities and using their whatever talents they have in the service of Krishna. Okay, so this verse today is talking also a lot about prasadam and the host and the recipients. So the recipients are the brahmanas, and they should be given very nice and opulent food cooked in ghee. Prabhupada says in a certain place that the demigods are very handsome and beautiful because they only eat food cooked in ghee. So you can imagine what happens to people that cook with dalda all the time. So cooking with ghee is very important. A lot of people criticize us. They say, "Oh, all your food is cooked in ghee. You know, it's not good for your health." That's not actually true. But we should understand that whatever is recommended by Krishna, that is the best thing that we should do. So here this feeding the brahmanas with opulent food, and it's very important. So it says, in ceremonies where brahmanas and Vaishnavas are sumptuously fed, the host partakes of the remnants of foodstuff after the guest has given permission. So this is just a normal thing that usually when we invite people to our house, we offer them very nice prasadam, food that's been offered to Krishna with love and devotion. And after they're fully satisfied, we take permission. Can we please sit down and take prasadam now? And they have to give their permission. So the descendants of Vrishni and Bhoja formally took permission from the brahmanas and ate the prepared foodstuff. So this whole process of cooking for Krishna, offering to Krishna, then offering food to brahmanas, and then getting their permission to take prasadam. This is a function that's absolutely necessary in Krishna consciousness. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita in several places. For example, the 13th chapter, 13th verse, Yajna yagya sistastina santo muchante sarvakilbasai punjate te tvakam papam ye pachanti atmatkaranam. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. So therefore, devotees understand the tremendous value of cooking for Krishna and then offering the food to Krishna with love and devotion, and then receiving it back as Krishna's prasadam, or mercy. This is explained in this verse. It says, the devotees of the Supreme Lord, or the persons who are in Krishna consciousness, are called santas, and they are always in love with the Lord, as it is described in the Brahma Samhita 5.38. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadev Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Sham Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. The santas, being always in compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, the giver of all pleasures, or Mukunda, the giver of liberation, or Krishna, the all-attractive person, cannot accept anything without first offering it to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees always perform yagyas in different modes of devotional service, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, etc. And these performances of yagyas keep them always aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association in the material world. You see, that is the downfall of anyone associating with sinful people. So we have to really understand the absolute importance of associating with genuine devotees and avoiding the association of sinful people. What is a sinful person? A person who violates the regulative principles. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. And who avoids also doing the 4 recommended activities, always hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from bona fide devotees, eating only prasadam, food offered love and devotion to Krishna, and engaging in devotional service and sankirtan, and like that, just being engaged always in devotional service. So it says, the santas, being always in compact of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda, the giver of all pleasures, or Mukunda, the giver of liberation, or Krishna, the all-attractive personality or person, cannot accept anything without first offering it to the Supreme Person. Therefore, such devotees always perform yagyas in different modes of devotional service. So yagya means sacrifices, right? And these performances of yagyas keep them always aloof from all kinds of contamination of sinful association in the material world. Others who prepare food for self or sense gratification are not only thieves, but also the eaters of all kinds of sins. How can a person be happy if he is both a thief and sinful? It is not possible. Therefore, in order for people to become happy in all respects, they must be taught to perform the easy process of Sankirtan Yagya in full Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, there can be no peace or happiness in the world. So now you see, over and over again, the Sankirtan Yaga is called Yuga Dharma. The whole Krishna consciousness movement is based on Sankirtan Yagya. If we don't go out on Sankirtan, then how will we benefit from being Krishna conscious? You see, it's absolutely necessary that we come out on Sankirtan and chant the holy names of the Lord in public and offer people prasadam and books and different ways, different paraphernalias for their purification. So if we do it on a regular basis and massively, those this society will change. If we do it half-heartedly and just a few times in a month, or hardly any time in a month, then we're not going to make any real headways in changing society from a demoniac society to a devotee society. Sankirtan is the most effective way of spreading this movement. And when it's done sincerely by devotees, you get results. You'll get more and more people. I remember in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, we were going out, like I've said before, up to 16 hours a day. And every time we would go out, maybe not every time, but many times, we would pick up a new devotee right off the street. And they would come back to the temple. And not all of them became devotees right away, but many, many people became devotees like that. Just picking them off the street and bringing them back to the temple and stuffing them full of prasadam. It was a very, very effective method. And then getting them regulated, following the regular schedule. Okay, so so this prasadam, regular eating prasadam, can heal the material disease, or maya. It's a material disease, being an illusion and avoiding proper functioning or proper practice of Krishna consciousness. So this is explained in the next verse, 13-14, where it says, Anad bhavanti bhutani parajanyad anasambhava yajnat bhavati parajanyo yagya karma samudbhava. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So here's a sequence of, let's say, activities that produce positive results of people becoming Krishna conscious. So in other words, all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced by rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, or sacrifice, and the only yajna recommended in Kali Yuga is Sankirtan yajna. And yajna is born of prescribed duties. So, what are our prescribed duties? Well, 4 things we shouldn't do and 4 things we should do every day. So if we simply follow that system of Sankirtan Yajna, then there'll be opulence, there'll be peace, there'll be happiness, there'll be everything that we need will be supplied naturally by nature. We don't need factories, we don't need technology. And this is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse number 4. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, the clouds shattered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. In other words, they didn't need fertilizer. The cows fertilized the land with their milk dripping from their udders. So their udders were very full most of the time, and and they would drip milk on the field. Right? So in the purport, Prabhupada says the basic principle of economic development is centered on land and cows, not on nuts and bolts and technology. The necessities of human society are food grains, fruits, milk, minerals, clothing, wood, etc. One requires all these items to fulfill the material needs of the body. Certainly one does not require flesh and fish or iron tools and machinery. During the regime of Maharaj Yudhisthira, all over the world there were regulated rains. Rainfalls are not in the control of the human being. The heavenly king Indradeva is the controller of rains, and he is the servant of the Lord. When the Lord is obeyed by the king and the people under the king's administration, there are regulated rains from the horizon, and these rains are the causes of all varieties of production on the land. Not only do regulated rains help ample production of grains and fruits, but when they combine with astronomical influences, there is ample production of valuable stones and pearls. Grains and vegetables can sumptuously feed a man and animals, and a fatty cow delivers enough milk to supply a man sumptuously with vigor and vitality. If there is enough milk, enough grains, enough fruit, enough cotton, enough silk, and enough jewels, then why do the people need cinemas, houses of prostitution, slaughterhouses, etc.? What is the need of an artificial, luxurious life of cinema, cars, radio, flesh, and hotels? Has this civilization produced anything but quarreling individually and nationally? Has this civilization enhanced the cause of equality and fraternity by sending thousands of men into a hellish factory and the war fields at the whims of a particular man? Is this said? It is said here that the cows used to moisten the pasturing land with milk because their milk bags were fatty and the animals were joyful. Do they not require, therefore, proper protection for a joyful life by being fed with a sufficient quantity of grass in the field? Why should men kill cows for their selfish purposes? Why should man not be satisfied with grains, fruits, and milk, which, combined together, can produce hundreds and thousands of palatable dishes? Why are there slaughterhouses all over the world to kill innocent animals? Maharaja Parikshit, grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira, while touring his vast kingdom, saw a black man attempting to kill a cow. The king at once arrested the butcher and chastised him sufficiently. Should not a king or executive head protect the lives of the poor animals who are unable to defend themselves? Is this humanity? Are not the animals of a country citizens also? Then why are they allowed to be butchered in organized slaughterhouses? Are these the signs of equality, fraternity, and nonviolence? Therefore, in contrast with the modern, advanced, civilized form of government, an autocracy like Maharaj Yudhisthira's is by far superior to a so-called democracy in which the animals are killed and a man less than an animal is allowed to cast votes for another less than animal man. It's unbelievable. It's beautiful. This is poetry. You know? We are all creatures of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord himself is the seed-giving father, and material nature is the mother of all living beings in all shapes. Thus, mother material nature has enough foodstuff both for animals and for men, by the grace of the Father Almighty, Shri Krishna. The human being is the elder brother of all other living beings. He is endowed with intelligence more powerful than animals for realizing the course of nature and the indications of the Almighty Father. Human civilizations should depend on the production of material nature without artificially attempting economic development to turn the world into a chaos of artificial greed and power only for the purpose of artificial luxuries and sense gratification. This is but the life of dogs and hogs. Whoa. Ouch. Prabhupada is putting everyone right in their place. See? The next verse says, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse number 5. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Since Maharaj Yudhisthira was under the protection of the Ajita, the infallible Lord, as above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. Whoa, look at this. Look at this, what it's saying, all these assets of nature will begin to cooperate if there's a saintly king who institutes following the regulative principles of Sanatana Dharma. In the previous verse, yesterday, it said that three things are essential for the peace of society, peace and happiness and welfare of society. One, protecting cows and keeping them happy and well-fed. Two, that one should protect Brahminical culture, make sure it's not disturbed in any way by treating Brahmanas very, very nicely. Real Brahmanas, that is, not phony Brahmanas, but real Brahmanas. And number three, becoming pure devotees. If those three things take place in society, nothing will be lacking. Everything will be supplied by nature. And as we see here, since Maharaj Yudhisthira was under the protection of the Ajita, meaning the infallible Lord, Lord is Ajita, he's never vanquished, he's always predominant and successful. No one can equal him or be greater than him, so no one can conquer him. Right? So Maharaj Yudhisthira was under the protection of Krishna, or Ajita, the infallible Lord, as mentioned above. As above mentioned, the properties of the Lord, namely the rivers, oceans, hills, forests, etc., were all pleased, and they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. This is real taxation. You tax the rivers, you tax the oceans and hills, but you don't have to force it. They are ordered by Krishna, because Krishna is the supreme controller of everything. And they used to supply their respective quota of taxes to the king. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. The secret of success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing can be possible. To make economic development by our own endeavors on the strength of tools and machinery is not all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there. Otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. The ultimate cause of success is the Daiva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira knew perfectly well that the king is the agent of the Supreme Lord to look after the welfare of the mass of people. Actually, the state belongs to the Supreme Lord. The rivers, oceans, forests, hills, drugs, etc., are not creations of man. They are all creations of the Supreme Lord. And the living being is allowed to make use of the property of the Lord for the service of the Lord. Today's slogan is that everything is for the people, and therefore the government is for the people and by the people. But to produce a new species of humanity at the present moment on the basis of God consciousness and perfection of human life, the ideology of godly communism, the world has to again follow in the footsteps of kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira or Parikshit. There is enough of everything by the will of the Lord, and we can make proper use of things to live comfortably without enmity between men or animal and man or nature. The control of the Lord is everywhere, and if the Lord is pleased, every part of nature will be pleased. The river will flow profusely to fertilize the land. The oceans will supply sufficient quantities of minerals, pearls, and jewels. The forest will supply sufficient wood, drugs, and vegetables. And the seasonal changes will effectively help produce fruits and flowers in profuse quantity. The artificial way of living, depending on factories and tools, can render so-called happiness only to a limited number at the cost of millions of people. Since the energy of the mass of people is engaged in factory production, the natural products are being hampered, and for this, the mass is unhappy. Without being educated properly, the mass of people are following in the footsteps of the vested interests by exploiting natural reserves, and therefore there is acute competition between individual and individual, nation and nation. There is no control by the trained agent of the Lord. We must look into the defects of modern civilization by comparison here, and should follow in the footsteps of Maharaj Yudhisthira to cleanse man and wipe out anachronisms. Anachronisms means things that are not functioning properly. Okay, these two verses can solve all problems of life, but we have to believe it, that we should depend on the production of nature without economic development. Who's going to accept? Will Elon Musk accept that? No. Will Crazy Joe accept that? No. Will anybody accept it? Hardly. They would say, what? You mean we're going to go back to living a primitive way? No washing machine, no this, no that. Yes. You only need those things because of artificial lifestyle. You go back to a natural lifestyle depending on the mercy of the Lord. As Prabhupada said here, he says that the secret to success is, well, depending on the mercy of the Lord. That's the secret of success. Where did he say that? We read it.
In the beginning of text 5.
Yeah, right. The secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, nothing can be possible. To make economic development by our own endeavors on the strength of tools and machinery is not all. The sanction of the Supreme Lord must be there. Otherwise, despite all instrumental arrangements, everything will be unsuccessful. Well, there you go. Now we know why Trump lost the election, because he was not taking complete protection of the Supreme Lord. He was depending on his own so-called intelligence or mind or whatever, and his own strategies, building up the economy. Building up the economy. The economy can crash at any time. We should have to realize that. As long as people are engaged in lusty behavior, lust, anger, and greed, then there's not going to be success. See? So why can't we believe this? That's the question. Why can't we believe it? And practice it? Because we are slaves of modern education. That's why. Modern education has taught us not to believe these things, to think that our salvation is industrialization. And what does industrialization produce? Only misery. It's a demoniac culture when you industrialize things. So yeah, they produce cars, they produce this, they produce that, but all these things are actually unnecessary if we depend on Krishna rather than depend on industrialization. Okay, so therefore, Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yomi bhakta prachati tadham bhakti paratam asnami prayatat manaha. 9th chapter, 26th verse, which is extremely important if we want to be Krishna conscious. Again, it's basing everything on Krishna's mercy. And where Krishna says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. He didn't say, offer me a Tesla, offer me this thing, that thing. No. The winning ticket of a lottery. No, he didn't say any of that. He just said, a leaf, water, fruit, and flower, and I will accept it. So, therefore, in the purport, Prabhupada says, for the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord in order to achieve a permanent, blissful abode for eternal happiness. The process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor, without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf or a little water or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. No one, therefore, can be barred from Krishna consciousness because it is so easy and universal. Who is such a fool that he does not want to be Krishna conscious by this simple method, and thus attain the highest perfectional life of eternity, bliss, and knowledge? Krishna wants only loving service and nothing more. Krishna accepts even a little flower from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of offering from a non-devotee. He is not in need of anything from anyone because he is self-sufficient, and yet he accepts the offering of his devotee in an exchange of love and affection. To develop Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse in order to declare more emphatically that bhakti, or devotional service, is the only means to approach Krishna. No other condition, such as becoming a brahmana, a learned scholar, a very rich man, or a great philosopher, can induce Krishna to accept some offering. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never causal. The process is eternal. It is direct action in service to the absolute whole. So bhakti doesn't depend on having a big education. It doesn't depend on industrialization. It doesn't depend on any material situation or cause. It depends on the jiva's love and devotion to serve the Lord unselfishly. So therefore, that's why it says that the two basic subjects of the entire Bhagavad Gita are you have Tyaga and Sannyasa. So Tyaga means Tyaga means that renunciation. So you offer the result of everything you do to Krishna, according to Krishna's desire. And sannyasa means that you give up all activities that are for material benefit. So, those are the two main subjects of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Giving up all mundane activities for sense gratification, and offering the result of all activities to the Lord. All the result of, in other words, offering sacrifice to the Lord. And the sacrifice, the only sacrifice that's can be performed in Kali Yuga successfully is Sankirtan Yajna. So there we go. That's the formula of success. Do we believe it? That's the question. And obviously Prabhupada believed it, and he was able to do miraculous things. Although he seemed to be a helpless old man, but actually he was helped by Krishna. That's success in whatever you do. Okay, so we will stop right there. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So Maharaj, is it okay if we follow the Varnashrama Dharma? Is it okay for a Kshatriya to drink, as in the verse that we saw today? Is it okay to drink? Is it allowed?
Are you a Kshatriya?
No.
Can you kill a lion with your bare hands?
No.
Then you're not a Kshatriya.
Yeah, but
So
if
don't even try it.
yeah, if we had a society, because I think Prabhupada was looking forward to those kind of society.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
why
we had
I'm
one,
gonna open a Varnashram college in a new temple to teach the 4 Varnas and ashramas, of course. Yeah, you have to have Kshatriyas. You need a class of Kshatriyas. They have to protect the people. But they don't retreat from the battlefield. Either they win or lose. There's no question of retreat. That's a Kshatriya. So that takes a lot of training. So the Pandavas were highly trained by Dronacharya. Right? So it's not an easy thing to be a Kshatriya. You have to have not only the physical structure for it, but the mental structure also. Just like even in the United States Army, they got about 1.5 million, 2 million people in the Army, but only about 175,000 of those people are real fighters. The rest are just support. That 175,000 real Kshatriyas, these are people that do not hesitate to pull a trigger and kill someone if they have to. They don't do it indiscriminately. They have to do it, in following the rules and regulations of engagement. But, if you gave me a gun and I was going to, pull the trigger and kill someone, I probably would hesitate, right? Because it's not an easy thing to do that. Of course, someone who's crazy might think it's easy, but, if you're a civilized person, to actually pull a trigger and kill someone, you have to be really trained to do that, right? And not afraid or not have any doubts. So it takes a long time to train a soldier to go out on a battlefield and not run away, not be afraid, and actually not hesitate to kill someone. It's not an easy thing to do. So it takes a lot of training. That's why you only have like 170,000 real soldiers, or 150,000, whatever. It's not a huge number, and these are people who are not afraid to die. When they get into the real battlefield, when the people shooting at them and they're shooting at them, at a certain point they're not afraid to die. They're ready to die if it's necessary. That's why they say, I'm ready to take a bullet for the president. So that means that they'll put themselves between the bad guy and the president and take a bullet. So it's not easy to do that. You have to be trained. And you have to have the mentality and the physical structure also for such behavior. Okay. So, you want to be a Kshatriya?
no.
No, it's all right. There are different types of people, right? So, we should become really convinced about Sankirtan. That should be our sacrifice. Sankirtan Yajna. Any other questions or comments?
So Maharaj, the definition of Sankirtan Yajna, obviously we go out on the streets and do. Is there, I did hear a few places, a broader definition of Sankirtan Yajna, which is anytime you're preaching, is that considered Sankirtan?
Where did you hear that broader?
In Prabhupada's, I'll look up the specific reference, but it's...
You don't have the reference right now.
No, I don't have it right now, but where...
once you have that reference, then you
okay.
You can talk about it. Yeah, okay? Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada ki jai. Go ahead. Go ahead, you can start.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Guru Charana.
Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandhamuhi Savadana Mate Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bhai E Baba Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya Kya Adena Koriyo Mane Asha Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttamagati Je prasad de pure sarva asha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो एमा भक्ति जाहा होते अविद्या विनाशा जायते वेदे गाय जाहरा चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमा जनारा बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना आहा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पदा छाया Bejas Goshek Tribhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Deshatanine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura
Jayo Vishnupad Paramansa Pararajikachasta Telasar Sri Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sukaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vinda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Shri Mayapura Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Gangamaya ki jai. Jamuna Maya ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to Sambhudev, all glories to Sambhudev, all glories to Sambhudev, all glories to Shikuru and Shikuranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana ki jai. Namo the lotus sweet.
Spiritual master, the only way which you can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his Lord's feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema animates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds.
We take shelter of the lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nirvishesha